Hey everybody, it's Allie Edwards, and I am back with another spread in my Project Life album for 2024. This is week 28, and I am working in my 9x12 album. So week 28, this is the week where I did or created the cards each day during the actual week itself of the high temperatures. So it was a super hot week around here in the hundreds, and then got back down into the 80s again by the end of the week. But it was a fun thing to document. So for this, what I did is I set up some white cardstock each day. I stamped on top of those, and then I added a photo to go along with it on a 4x6 card. After I had done all those, so I did all those with a little flag sticker there that has the actual date stamped on it. Then I am using a card from the July Stories by the Month kit. That's the July Stories Repeated Vellum card, and I will add my week 28 label or what do we want to call that? It's the weekly designation, the weekly card. Anyway, adding that on top. So I'm just letting the ink dry. Then I was looking at my 12x12 papers, and I was thinking about, okay, I knew I want to add journaling on here. I used up the space in the 4x6s, and then I have a 3x4 photo of my mom for her birthday. And I saw these labels, a patterned paper from the label scrapbook kit, or maybe the frames. I made frames scrapbook kit. And I am choosing to cut that up. So creating these labels that are going to go on top of something. And at this point in the process, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew that I wanted to have additional repetition. So repeated journal cards idea. Then I started looking through my pattern papers just to see what did I have that I could use behind there, and I decided to go very bold and use this one. And this pattern paper I believe is from the Grow scrapbook kit. So using up some of those 12x12 papers that I've had in my stash from this past year, the last couple years of the scrapbook kit. What I'm going to do then, once I get all my 3x4s cut, is that I'm going to take those labels or frames, the grayish, I call this grayish, beige, grayish, tan. Those are going to get trimmed and then added on top of there. So you're just getting a little bit of this super bold pattern, but I really liked having all of those different colors represented in the pattern and then having them all be the same, right? That was part of it too. Really dialing in or leaning into the repetition idea. After I cut out these little labels, then I was able to use my 1-inch circle punch to punch out an area to create the actual shape there. And I'm not trying to make it perfect when I'm using that 1-inch circle punch, so I just kind of eyeball it and hope that I am close enough to the edge. Definitely do not care whether these are perfect. And if I did care, I would either use a die cut machine or do something else, use ones that we have that are already embellishments that are created for this sort of thing. But instead, I'm choosing to use what I have and choosing to look at some of those larger pattern papers and see how I can make use of them by cutting them down in a way that's going to fit into this particular project that I'm working on. So I took the time to get all of those set up, and then once I had all of those trimmed out, I also wanted to have a repeated title on each one. So I'm going through my stamps. These are stamps that I reorganized in the stash class following Laura Wansick's idea, where she removes them actually from their original stamp sets and organizes them by themes that make sense to her. So she was my inspiration, and I'm super happy that I did it. I've already used my stamps more than I had previously. So I'm going to repeat stamp the word today, and this is from an older stamp set. I'm going to stamp that onto each one of these labels or these frames, and then that is going to get adhered onto the background pattern, and I'm actually going to run all of these through my sewing machine. So that is going to be the next step in the process for me once I get all of them stamped. So for this particular one, I am going to have an insert, a 6x8 page protector insert, because I wanted to have 7 days of the documenting documenting the temperature. So I have that inside one of or inserted 6x8 page protector. So I have lots, I think I have at least 7 then of these as well. So creating these, again, stamping on top. I'm using StazOn ink. I'm going a little bit off the top edge of the shape there. So that's fine because it looks like it was supposed to be that way. Love the big bold stamping on there, and love how it's just going to give me a little bit of space for a story. Like, this is kind of my current vibe right now, is just adding in, you know, a little bit of context for each one of these things rather than doing long form writing. And I go back and forth on that. And right now I feel like the season that I'm in right now is just kind of short stories for the win. Like, that just feels like the way that I want to do it, especially in a season where I've been catching up on project life and going back in and filling in pockets. So that's been really fun. So like I said, adhering this down on there, then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine. And on my sewing machine, I'm playing around with some different stitching. And one of the reasons why I bought the new sewing machine that I bought last year was that it could do these custom stitches or different kinds of stitching. And so this is actually like a leaf pattern that you can stitch directly on there. I love how it turned out. I'm still rocking the yellow thread. I'll probably just have yellow thread in my machine until I switch to red. Or maybe green. Maybe I'll do green this year in December daily. I like to just have one. I like it to keep it simple. Just keep one color of thread in there for a while. That's like my thread vibe, and then I move on from there. So the sewing machine that I got is a Brother. I'll put the actual model in the link or in my supply link. I've loved this machine so far, though. It's been great. I think it's one that's like kind of specifically for stitching. It also has the option to do some letters, like alphabet letters, and I haven't tried that out yet, but that's kind of on my list to see, you know, how do I actually do that on there. This was really the first time that I played around with trying one of the other stitching styles, but I love it as a texture element. Obviously, I've been adding, you know, stitching like straight line stitching for a long time. That's a really easy way to do it, but this was a fun way to mix things up. And on this machine, really all you have to do is match the stitching that you want with the number, and you punch in the number on the machine and you push the presser foot down, and there it goes. So it's pretty fantastic, and I would definitely want to do some more of that. So adding in my journaling, I'm using a Micron pen here for the journaling this time. I've bought a new set of those, so I've got kind of the width variety. The set that I got included a brush pen too, so that's been kind of fun to play around with as an alternative to the Kuretake brush pen that I've been using. I really love the contrast between the thickness of the title, the thickness of the word today, and then the thin quality of this particular pen, which is probably an 01 pen. I know they have like an 001 and an 005, but I think that this is like a 01 or an 05. So still pretty thin. Underlining underneath there. And I'm pretty much telling the story that goes next to each one of the photos. So like there was a story about Anna going to volleyball camp at Oregon State, writing a little bit about the weather. That's what I did on the first one. So the first one was kind of like, oh, this week I'm documenting what the temperatures are. And so those first 3 photos, like where I'm sitting in the pool and that kind of thing, those are all related to the temperature. And this was like the first week during this particular year of 2024 that it really got hot, and so that was a fun thing to document. You can do this at any time. You can do this when it's really cold too, right? That would be a different way of approaching it. So on the insert, I have photos, and then I have 2 journaling cards there. Again, that was part of the 7 total that I did. So writing a little bit about my sister and my niece visiting, and kind of the different things that we were doing there. So filling in the cards with a little bit of a story. All right, after I got all of my journaling added in, I grabbed the sticker sheet from the July Stories by the Month kit, and I am going to use that to add a little bit more context to a couple of my photos here. So for this first one, I'm writing happy birthday to my mom, and that is going to be added right on to that 3x4 photo of her from the 1980s or so. I also decided when I was putting that one on there that I wanted to add in I wanted an embellishment used on here. So I was looking at stars, different star stickers that I have. And first I was looking at the colorful ones, and then I decided to go with some gold puffy stars that I believe were probably from a December Daily kit or related to December Daily last year. And I liked the look of adding that onto the stamped temperature numbers. So I'm going to add some of these bigger, thicker stars on to the numbers, like kind of right in the middle, either at the top middle or right in the middle. The ones that had the zeros I did in the middle, and the other ones I did in between the two numbers themselves. So adding those into each one. And this is kind of, this is essentially, again, a concept of establishing a formula for yourself and then following through on all of those different cards. So as you guys have seen, some weeks I don't have a system that I'm following. In this particular week, I had a system that I was following even during the actual documentation of the week, right? I knew I wanted to record the temperature. I knew I wanted to have a photo to go along with that. And I knew I wanted to stitch the photo onto the background cardstock. So that was my initial jumping off point. And then from there, I'm filling in the other pockets with either photos and or the journaling cards. And the formula that I used for the journaling cards was pattern paper, 12 by 12 pattern paper, a 12 by 12 repeated shape pattern paper. So this one had these labels or frame shapes on them, and then running it through the sewing machine, and then added on my journaling. I also did swap out. I had a color photo of Simon at his job. He's being a cameraman this summer. And then I decided that I wanted to have another black and white photo in there. I think I have a black and white on the other side, and I liked how that looked. I've always liked mixing black and white and color photos, and I feel like I don't do as many like traditional layouts these days that have multiple photos. I've been into a lot of like one page in photo enlargements and then building off of that. But I have always loved seeing the mixture of the color photos mixed with the black and white photos in the same sort of project. And a pocket scrapbooking like this still gives me the opportunity to do that. So I'm adding, again, like I said, a little more context, just like, visiting Simon at work. And this is like what Simon saw, he took a picture of us while we were watching him. And those little label stickers are great for that. Again, these were included, the specific label sticker sheet was included in the July Stories by the Month kit. So flipping it over, checking things out, I think I decided to add one more that's onto the photo of my sister and the girls there. And then I'm almost done wrapping this one up. I really love how this one turned out. I think a lot of times when I do something like this where it is very formulaic, I always feel very satisfied with them in the end. Like I just love the repetition. I love, I've got variation in color. I've got variation in the things I'm taking pictures of. But then I also have some real consistency here too. I also wanted to add a tab sticker to the outside edge of my insert, and so I'm going to just fold that over and then use a tiny attacher to staple it in place. Just give it a little bit of extra since it's right on the edge there. All right, as always, let me know if you guys have questions in the comments below, and we'll see you back here again soon.